I would love to know what this message means to you, what it means for you, and what you are willing to do with it. It's 20-ish slides, so I will go through the information at a pace that I am comfortable with, and you, because you are not live in the room, have the opportunity to digest what is shared at your own pace. So I look forward to you giving yourself the grace of working through the information shared in a way that actually serves you today, whenever that is for you, and then would also love to hear from you as to what questions this material brings up for you. So with all of that being said, at this time, I am going to begin the presentation that I have prepared for you, and I hope that you do enjoy. Taking Just Say No to the Next Level Lawfully with yours truly, the woman commonly known as Laura J. from the family Hamilton. Notice of self-protection. I wanted to share this meme of A Preacher's Point by John T. Lewis that said, "I would rather have thousands say to me at the judgment, 'We heard you preach and you hurt our feelings,' than to have just one lost soul say, 'I heard you preach, but you did not tell me the truth.'" This is not legal advice, and I accept no liability for how this information is used by any man, woman, or person due to my lack of understanding of their situation and how my beliefs are being applied. I believe and claim I have the right to share my beliefs with others in good faith and without being bound to any society or corporation that may try to bind me to their rules and obligations. I have my own beliefs and claim the right to express my BS, belief systems, freely. I believe it is each man and woman's responsibility, the ability to respond, to fully understand, stand under all claims made in notices. Recognizing understand is a way jurisdiction is gained, and a better word to use is comprehend, which means to understand, but it's a synonym that doesn't put you under the jurisdiction of the one claiming right to you by gaining jurisdiction over you. So, I will hold any man or woman liable in their private capacity for making false claims against me. Roles don't protect people. We must protect ourselves, and future generations, lest we be deemed a threat to the population that the herd has always been used to maintain control over, as we're seeing within this pandemic, which pan actually means all, and demos or demic being from the Greek word for people. So all people is what a pandemic applies to. And then we have to see how it is actually a pandemic, because it has been written by the hands that work for the corporations that orate what the corpse, which is a dead entity, says. And then the men and women actually take liability, responsibility, and accountability for working on behalf of that which they become half of, the signing party that is accruing the liability, karma, and also accountability and responsibility for the choice to fulfill corrupted orders. So the summary of tonight's presentation: why me? An unconventional journey to here? Indeed, I have taken a journey of lived experience, which is devil backwards. I have lived what I share. I have applied it. I am applying it. And so I want you to be aware that we are currently in a mixed war. It is the current lie that we are all being exposed to now. Our true place within the hierarchy of creation and how we're converted into less is very important information to understand, to comprehend, rather, and to recognize how the words that we use are wands that will either set us free or keep us in captivity. And if we keep doing what we've always done, trusting blindly that what we say doesn't matter so much as what it does, then we're going to see ourselves dove deeper into a problem like what we're experiencing collectively. The myth of Santa Claus corrupts our innocence, which is our inner sense. The conscience that was sent for our conscience was the consciousness. and confidence that we have in the science. So start putting words together and breaking them down in a novel way in order to be the creator of your own life, one worth living, and passing on to the next generations who will inherit it from us. The truth about notices, claims, and standing in honor or good faith. Why just say no is not enough, and how to take it to a practical level. The dangers of public status. OPCA litigant, person, vaxxed, vexed, unvexed. We have to start recognizing how any statuses that we assume then consume the one who has assumed them. The lawful limits of liability protection and how we call one another to account. That is what I believe we must all do. The true common law and how it's been capitalized for corporate interest's sake is another important component of this whole bigger picture that I wish to break down for you tonight. And the dangers of representation and trusting the professionals. Why not be present instead of be represented as other than you actually are? To be alternative, altering the native into something altered, or original, away from the original, which is literally what ab means, from or away. These are important distinctions that we need to see when words are broken down for their compounded meanings. Why I'm passionate about what I'll share. The book that you see on the screen is written by me, yours truly, Laura J. I have an HBA, Honors English degree, and I also am a certified John Maxwell Team founding partner, which means that I went through a coach certification training that was for speakers, leaders, and those who wish to know how to hold space in a sacred way for those who wish to go to a deeper level within themselves. Coaching takes on all forms, because it's been bastardized over the years so that we confuse coaching with mentorship, counseling, therapy, teaching, training. And the truth is that coaching in its truest form is holding space to be able to allow the organic unfoldment of the one that is brave enough to face themselves and the emotions that are showing up in the now, which is the only moment that we ever get to experience, which is why when asked, why carry on if no one is here? Because you're here in the moment that you're watching this now. It's your now. This is my now. Our nows are colliding. This is a reflection of the fact that time is not linear. In fact, it is compounded like a multi-dimensional layer cake. And when we actually slice through the truth of it, we meet in the now, and that is how you get to digest this at your own pace and settle your own nervous system so that you can feel safe enough to receive information that may arouse cognitive dissonance within you, where two competing beliefs or ideas show up in the household of you, the energy den, the Eden of you, that you are a Garden of Eden. In the moment cognitive dissonance shows up for you, you have to be prepared to say, okay, I'm going to breathe myself back into the moment. I'm going to say that I am not telling you what you need to believe, because I believe that is taking away your power, and that is what I wish for you to claim for yourself and know how to do it. I am simply offering you information that will allow you to inform yourself, your substance, so that you don't just necessarily conform to that which is sent for your consciousness when the con is sent, as it was to me in 2021, last year, when I spoke at a rally. And then 2.5 weeks later was issued a summons for my person, which is not me, but I did not know that, except for in 2019 when I went through my awakening. I had a psychotic episode, it was called, when I had competing realities coexisting in the moment where I felt more significant than my status allowed, except for I was tuned into what I'm doing now. Then I didn't have context for it or experience for it until that call led me into the system that I believe is a threat to us all. So my messy awakening allowed me to be able to now do what I am doing, because there is no way I will be represented as something less than I am in the name of being more than I am. When I believe that I am enough, as are you, and the universal story of not enough needs to become the universal and collective story of we've had enough. And I'm going to claim my own rights, and I'm going to stand on those claims. And any man or woman that makes a superior claim against me will have to battle it out in the courts, where I can see the one that is causing harm to me. And you'll be able to do the exact same thing if you are brave enough to take a stand for what you believe in too. Because if we do not know what we believe in, if we don't know what we stand for, we risk falling for just anything. And there is a lot of BS being sold all over. So I wanted to share that I have a trial October 31st of this year that I have been dealing with via lawful notice since last year, which is how I learned all that I will share today. And that is to say, I had a comment in one of my YouTube videos that it is of an unsound mind to say that it is pending, because it is not yet solidified. And yet, what I know to be true is that the information that I have come across means that there is no man or woman that can wear a suit and make a claim against me without having to boot his own ass. If he is to try to make an ass out of me and you through an assumption, to assume is to make an ass of you and me, if he or she is to do that against me, I will make a claim against them in their private capacity, because no suit makes them better than me. And the same is true for thee. So I am a published author now, very excited for that, and I have written much of this in there, in fact. So I'll be getting many copies this month, and would love to be able to offer a signed copy to the first few who reach out. So if that is you, you can go to ljeh.ca and gain access to that, so that you can also receive emails from me if you subscribe on the homepage. So let's dive into the actual presentation now. The mixed war defined. The first thing that we need to understand is that there is a public war, a private war, and a mixed war. We're in the mixed war, which is where on one side it's public and on one side it's private. I am a woman in my private capacity, with all common law rights reserved at all times. I've made my notice to you to say I have the right to share what I believe to be true. And you can contest it, but if you do, you're liable, responsible, and accountable for trying to cause me harm, and I'm not going to allow you to wear a suit in order to do it. So that is how I, as a woman, take the suits off of the men or women that are in the public that would use the umbrella of corporate protection to say that I am in the wrong or need to be evaluated in some way. And I say, no, public and private, there's a big difference. And if we don't realize that difference, our person, any titles, any statuses are in the public, women and men stand in the private, can traipse into the public. But we have to remember the story of when truth and lies were swimming in a fountain in town, and lies stole truth's clothing so that she had to then go back home naked, and everyone was offended because she was so willing to be outrageous and show her whole self, because she didn't have any other choice, because lies took away the protection. Well, I say, I'm not going to be truth that allows lies to steal my clothing. And if lies choose to steal my clothing, I will stand naked as I am, because I have no shame. And I'll not let denied emotions get me the way that the legal system and its legal beagles would have us fall prey to. For what we pray to, we become prey to. The A becomes an E for energy that we give to the corpse that would consume us in the name of acting on behalf of it. The corporation, corpse, dead entity. Oration is what is spoke or wrote. That's jurisdiction. Diction being what is spoke or wrote, juris being of law or of right. The corpse can orate the rules, which are policies employees and patrons must abide by. But a man or woman that chooses to interact with the corpse at times does not have to apply or have applied to them a status that lowers our standing. Because in private, as a man or a woman, we can stand. In the public, we can only status and pretend. That is an important distinction we all need to make clear within our mind and our mind's eye, which is the inner eye, a vision connected to the intuition that our soul hired ahead of time to guide us through this life. Agents and employees act and sign on behalf of corporations they work for, becoming liable for harm caused by orders signed off on because a corpse cannot pay with blood or flesh. So it is the man or woman acting on behalf of the corpse that makes the final call that pays, karmically as well as literally. And this is what the legal fiction has made men and women forget. The corpse protects its own, but cannot cover one not wearing a suit, which is a status, title, or personage, which we're going to get into with a very crummy diagram that I drew just to make it very evident and apparent for you. We all act on our own free will and must recognize there is no us versus them, for we are the ones causing harm to one another and are liable, accountable, and responsible for all damages we sign off on. We, the people, just forgot the power of a pen in hand because our arms were filled with weapons to distract us from the simple truth that we either sign our life away, as we have heard commonly been said, or learn to take it back one act at a time. We decide whether we will play in the Reopening Ontario Act, for instance, which is the offense that my person, was said to have caused harm to a corporation and a woman acting as Her Majesty who was not there, which means if there was no victim, there was no crime. I did nothing wrong, and I have tried my very best to clear my name to this point, and I'll be doing more, which could be my claim to fame, except for that is not even of importance to me in any way, really, because I didn't come here to be famous. It's just the byproduct of actually doing that which we are called to do, which is why I'm still doing this presentation, even though it is only me that is on it. And I don't feel like it's a failure, yo. If you watch this back and you say, oh, she couldn't get anyone on, well, shame on you, because I am doing what I came here to do tonight. And judgments against me are reflections of repressions within you that are simply being mirrored back to you. And you see me do that which I would have done with others present, except for they're not. And so I do it anyway. And you are here present in this now moment to receive what I say. So, hey, good to be with you. We have to stop letting our scared side rule our lives, which I get more into in here when we talk about archetypes, of which we all have 4 survival archetypes in common: the victim, child, saboteur, and prostitute. And you better believe the prostitute has been in its scared side while we've been allowing all of these corporations to change their bylaws that are hyphenated so that we are no longer living by laws of a universal nature where we see ourselves in one another. The sacred question that was asked by sacred societies before they were turned secret is, how do you know you were suffering? You have to read the book in order to get the answer. Or maybe you have already heard the answer before, and good on you. But if that is true, then how are we allowing what is happening over in China to the Uyghurs or the Falun Gong people, for instance, to be in retraining camps that we say, oh, it's just China? Well, planetation, Earth, is a lot smaller than what we are looking at it as. And if we don't look after our own world as the creators of it, then it could be a really messy and horrible, nightmarish reality for us all to experience, and especially those who come through us, who have a right and also responsibility to take a stand and stand on those claims that we make lawfully, as I'm going to show you how to do. The myth of Santa Claus I wanted to touch on because there's an attorney of 45 years named Edward McCloskey that wrote a great article that is down here, which is different from the articling that lawyers must do in order to understand clauses and the fact that every complete sentence is made up of at least one clause, which is a sentence with a subject and verb. So we have to know what the subject is doing. And that is different from a status that would convert the subject into subject to what they are doing, which is how, for instance, a man who travels or a man who drives commercially is converted into a driver status, except for we all thought that we were that. And so we got our driver's license when we turned 16 because that was what you were supposed to do. Well, what if we've been led astray collectively because of pro-social lies that we have been accustomed to because from a young age we were trained that Santa Claus comes down the chimney every Christmas Eve in order to give presents and eat cookies and to bless the children of the world. Well, in Tim Allen's movie, The Santa Claus, Scott Calvin is a man that accidentally kills Santa by knocking him off the roof. And he finds a business card in his pocket with the instructions, if something should happen to me, put on my suit, the reindeer will know what to do. Think about the reins. Are you actually holding those in your own life? It's all punny, except for it's just not funny. Feeling guilty that so many children would miss out on Christmas because Santa fell off his roof, Scott Calvin puts on the suit, grabs his son Charlie that was over for Christmas Eve to spend it with him as one of a divorced nuclear family. And then together they save Christmas, except for the fine print on that business card said that once you put on the suit, you are Santa in perpetuity, which means forever. And that is until he dies and someone else takes his place, or should that happen sooner than his death, then he would be able to enjoy what was left of the life that he was free to be himself in until the moment where he was converted into Santa. Edward shares the 4 requirements of a legal contract, which are capacity, consent, lawful cause, and lawful object. So when challenging a contract, he says consent is the first subject on the table and capacity determines jurisdiction, which are 2 aspects relevant to us all. Because if we believe that our capacity is in the public to a status, then we are actually lowering our standing in order to status and pose and pretend that we are other than we actually are. For the man and the myth are not the same. The myth of Santa Claus is taken on by the one who wears the suit of him. These are the things we must get back to and realize that informed consent is a requirement of every contract in order for it to be legally binding. The hierarchy of creation, this is where we can put it into perspective in this diagram I created for the book, in fact. Energy, creator, source, whatever you call the all that we come from and return to and only feel separate from based on the boxes of words that we put the creator of all into and say that all is only that which our BS subscribes to. Sub being what is we're under, and then scribe being what is wrote that our BS says is all that's on the note, which means that's as good as it gets. But that is not, in fact, the truth per se. We just have to get out of the boxes and drop the walls on those boxes of words to see that there is more commonality and similarity. There is no us versus them. We are the ones that are doing all of these things to one another. And then we divide and conquer as a war strategy we're falling prey to, which is why we have to realize that under the creator of all is man and woman. There's a transhumanism agenda, hue being just one aspect of the man, trans being actional, and the way that we interact, that in fact, in and of itself, being the way that we have been conditioned to believe that it is all about acting. And Shakespeare has a quote that we're all but actors playing on the stage of life. We come in for a time and then leave at a time, and it's all pre-scripted. It's just we're not privy to what the script is until in retrospect we look back and call that our life. Well, you are writing the greatest story that has never been written because your life is actually penning it down. Someone else might capture what you do with the time that you have here. But regardless of the fact, your life is the legacy that are the legs I see, the legacy that we are leaving individually and collectively. Though in divide you all is how we can start to see the individuality that we have been divided in ourselves to believe certain things at the expense of others, which is how we then created government in order to manage that which we didn't feel like we had capacity to manage if we're actually to carry on living and have a full life. We just wanted certain things to be looked after, which would be nice. If the de jure government had not been replaced by a de facto government, which is a corporate government, for this is an attempted corporatocratic takeover, that there is a, for instance, here in Canada, a federal government, a provincial government, a municipal government. The municipalities are the cops, courts, councils that uphold the bylaws and legislation of the larger corps, which are all boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes. So the man or woman that has standing in our private capacity on the common law, which is the common ground that we all stand on, then comes down into the private sector of the corporate domain, which is where then we become a person, a human, an individual, a vexed one, which vex means to cause annoyance to someone else. We're going to get into that more with the OPCA litigant status application that is relevant to every single man or woman that doesn't agree with what's been taking place collectively. We lose standing on common ground in order to gain status, though it is not a gain at all. It just seems that way because it can feign that it is more, because you now suddenly have a professional title behind you, which is great, except for if it makes you negate your own humanity, your mankind, if it makes you do things that would cause harm, loss, or fraud, which are the common law tenets to your fellow man or woman. That is when then the title doesn't protect you, as we're going to get into. Status is an illusion, for we were all born equal under the eyes of our shared creator. Here it is unwritten and unlimited agreements between the living. Our word is our bond. We can change it. If it's not working, we can say, okay, I'm sorry that I made that agreement that we would do it this way. I can't fulfill that agreement. Can we change the terms? And then the other one that we have made that agreement with can say yay or nay, and then we can negotiate. And that is a life skill we very much need to practice, because otherwise we're going to get into contracted states of contracts, which is contract law that ties us into a corporate body that would have us become less in the name of gaining status to appear more, when the truth is not that. What is written is limited, and it's based in rules, obligations, policies, or procedures by incorporated entities that would say you have to fulfill that which you promised to do before you knew what you would go through as you did. And the transformation of self-image from one status or title or position or role into another takes its toll on the man or woman that is doing these things, that is converted into the status that instead of being a man or woman verbing, meaning doing things, we become the status which converts the verb into a title or a term. instead, which we have to get out of our head and back into our heart. Maxims of law. Consent makes the law. A contract is a law between the parties. Parties not being a man or woman, that's just another definition. And the creator owns the creation within this matrix. We're matrix because she thought that was best. And we'll do her best until she knows better. And then we'll say, oh, well, let's just do it this way instead now. Just like science says that this is the best hypothesis so far until a better hypothesis comes along and proves that one wrong. And then we say, oh, no, this is the hypothesis that is true now. Well, is not science similar to philosophy then? Which is why we're taught not to talk of religion or politics at the dinner table, because then we might actually see the insanity of believing other people's BS at the expense of what feels true for us. For truth is resonant. We feel it. It either feels good or it doesn't feel good. And we don't know why. We can't explain it in our head, but in our heart we know. And we just wonder why, what's going on. And then we act against our better judgment of the heart, and then we do the thing that we don't feel like we should, but it logically makes sense, and then we get stuck into contracted states that don't work when we change, and it can't change because it's dead and written and can only have amendments and revisions made to it. A party who is silent appears to consent. So if we do not contest that which is claimed against us, or that we are notified of, if we don't contest it, then we have accepted it. Unless we make a counterclaim, which is what we must all do our best to do once we know how to, which I hope to help you be able to through this presentation tonight. Unequal things ought not to be joined. Did you know you have God-given names, or names given by your parents, the creators, the pair of rents that the creator chose for you, which is why you came through those who you were born to? And then you have a family name, which is within the Western culture, at least based from the patriarchal system. You follow the father's side of the family because that's the Roman law. And then the family name, which binds you to something in the public, actually then gets conjoined with your God-given names. And then no longer are you on the same plane because you have two unequal things joined, which is called a joinder. Legal and lawful are not the same, nor are they equal. For in the public, we are governed by bylaws, whereas within the context of the common law, we are governed by law. Call it natural law, call it universal law, call it Allah, whatever you want to call the source of all that governs the way life goes and how our body operates without our having to think about it. Our heart beats, our lungs breathe, the blood courses through our veins. Those things the body does without our having anything to do with it mentally, governed by law, until converted into bylaws that would limit us if we allowed ourselves to not see through the deception we've been deceived by. Lawful versus legal. The piece I wanted to make sure that you were aware of here is the difference between lawful being contemplating the substance of law, whereas legal alludes to the form of law. So it's about substance and form. Lawful is about the substance. I am a woman. My matter is geared towards the feminine expression of me, biologically. Legal would be about the forms, which was how I lost my rights under the Mental Health Act and learned that if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And when my person was summoned and I had been through what I had been through and seen what I saw before the con video game went public, and then I saw what was experienced privately turned public in terms of how evil all of what has been upon us has been. I seen when I was in there I know it's not grammatically correct, but it rhymes and I like that. You can bet your bottom dollar I am going to go with what rhymes and say the time has come for us to get back to being creators instead of consumers.